Hey guys, welcome back to another video of Quick Freeze's Game Room. Today I'm going to be doing kind of like an update to a video I had on my channel a while ago, which I deleted. A while ago I uploaded a channel of my first impressions of X-Men First Class. And some of you may have seen it, some of you may not have seen it, but what happened is I deleted that video off of YouTube for one reason only. First off, I didn't like the movie. I really did not like the movie. And I said that in my impressions video. And so what happened is I deleted the video for one reason only. And that reason is because I got over 20 to 24 private messages from just random people saying, the most disgusting, the most vile things I've ever read. Such as like, what would you like better? Would you rather, like, bleep your dad? Or, stuff like, I'm trying to remember them, something like, maybe you should sprinkle some feces on your popcorn next time you have a tasty treat when you actually watch a good movie. Stuff like that. And I got, like, maybe, like, 20 to, like, 24 of those messages. And, I read them and they just disgusted me. So I deleted the video, mainly to stop the messages from going into my inbox. And, that's the sole reason. And talking with a friend today, he kind of said I was letting these trollers, I never heard the term trolls before, but basically he said by deleting my video, I'm letting them win. I'm running away from my opinions and stuff like that. So, and that got me very mad, very irritated that he said that to me. So, he's not making me, but he said that, and like, it just made me think, you know what, that's fine. I want to redo my impressions video, because the first impressions video, I did it in the parking lot of the theater that I saw X-Men. So, what I did today is I pretty much spent half the day, typing out my thoughts of the X-Men movie. So I actually put in some, a lot of time into my opinions. I gave reasons for my opinions right here. So I'm going to list them off and tell you what I thought about this movie more in depth instead of my previous video. If you guys want to see my previous video, that's fine, because I am actually going to add my previous video at the end of this one. So if you want to see my original video, you can. So, but anyway, I'm just going to read off my different thoughts. I broke it down. I did break it down by character, just to make it a little more organized. So here we go. Like I said before, I simply did not like this movie. A lot of people, actually everyone I've talked to, pretty much said this is the best X-Men movie ever made. Okay, that's fine. That's great. But for me, I personally did not like it. And I'll tell you the reasons why. This was a prequel to everything else. It was prequel to X-Men, prequel to X-Men 2, X-Men 3, and a prequel to Wolverine. Now, a lot of people say, no, it has nothing to do with the other movies. You can't even tie it in with the other movies. No, you're completely... I'm sorry, but I totally have to disagree with you on that. And these are my reasons why it's a prequel to all the other movies. One, they recreated the Nazi camp scene from X-Men 1. Where Magneto moved the metal gate? They recreated that in First Class. If it's not a prequel, why would they recreate that scene? 2, Bryan Singer, the guy who wrote and directed the previous X-Men movies, he wrote X-Men First Class. Matthew Vaughn said this was a prequel in an interview. So, from the director of X-Men First Class said himself this was a prequel to all the other movies. So, and my last thought on that was, when this is not like a proven anything, but it's just when I went to see the movie, the theater that I saw it in called it X-Men 5. which, you know, it doesn't mean it's a prequel, but even the general public is, you know, connecting these movies somehow, you know? So if they call it X-Men 5, they know it goes with the other movies. So saying it has nothing to do with the other movies is, I have to totally totally disagree with that. So, okay, now moving on. Like I said, I broke it down broke it down by character. So I'm just going to start off with everyone's probably the most famous X-Men character ever, Wolverine. Okay? Yes, Wolverine was in this movie. He was in it for a 20-second cameo, and I will admit that 20-second cameo was hilarious. Okay? Hilarious. But why was Wolverine in this movie? You know, I'll have to ask you guys that one right now. Why was he in this movie? Because if this was a prequel, which it was, that would mean in the Wolverine movie, Wolverine was in the military with Sabretooth, Blob, and Deadpool. Okay? He was in the military with those guys in the Wolverine movie. So if X-Men First Class was a prequel to that movie, wouldn't Wolverine be in the military with those guys? Or at least with Sabretooth, instead of sitting in a bar alone, drinking? You know, so that doesn't make any sense. I'm glad Wolverine had a funny cameo in the movie, but to me it just didn't make any sense. Okay, that's it for Wolverine. Emma Frost. She is the white, blonde bombshell, you know, you can turn herself into diamonds, and she's also a telepath. My thing with her is, again, going back to the Wolverine movie, if anyone remembers back in the Wolverine movie, there was a young 15-year-old girl that could turn her body into diamond skin. Okay? Now, I will admit, at the end of that movie, in the credits, they credit that actress as Diamond Girl. I will, you know, that is true. But come on, that is Emma Frost. You know, I don't care what you say, but seriously, that is Emma Frost. And with that, since she was a 15-year-old girl in Wolverine, but in X-Men First Class, which was a prequel to Wolverine, she was a full-grown adult. Okay? So are you telling me, so in X-Men First Class, she's a full-grown adult. In Wolverine, she's a 15-year-old girl. To the original trilogy, she doesn't exist at all. Okay? You know? That doesn't make any sense to me. So, and at the end of X-Men First Class, Emma Frost leaves with Magneto. She joins him, she leaves, but she's never seen again in any other movie except for the Wolverine when she was a 15-year-old girl. Okay, but if you totally dismiss Wolverine, Emma Frost left with Magneto. Wouldn't you see at least an older woman, an older version of Emma Frost with Magneto in X-Men, at least in X-Men 1? Wouldn't you see her? So, I don't get it. She leaves with Magneto and just totally disappears off the face of the planet. I don't understand that. But my main gripe is, in Wolverine, she was a 15-year-old girl, but in X-Men First Class, she was a full-grown woman. Moving on to Mystique. My only gripe with her is in X-Men First Class, she was a childhood friend of Professor Xavier, Charles Xavier. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. Whatever. That makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is in X-Men 1, the first movie, she tried to kill Professor X or Professor Charles Xavier by rewiring Cerebro. She did that. So, I question, if they were childhood friends in X-Men First Class, why would she try to kill him in X-Men 1? You know? I understand maybe, they have some differences over the years, but, come on, even if, if my friend became my enemy, it just doesn't make any sense to me. A childhood friend, and then you tried to kill him later on. Okay, well, speaking of Professor X, he's my next character. Young Charles Xavier has an English accent, but his family lived in Westchester, New York for over 10 generations. My problem with that is, why does he have an English accent? And this is young Charles Xavier, when he was a boy and kind of like a teenage 20-year-old. He had an English accent. The problem is, he didn't have an English accent in the other movies, played by Patrick Stewart. He didn't. And in the comics, he doesn't have it. Well, in the comics, he's not like an English accent-speaking person. But, that doesn't make any sense to me. If your family lived in Westchester, New York for 10 generations, where did you pick up the accent? Another thing is, Professor X says in X-Men 1, he and Magneto built Cerebro. And the reason... Professor X in X-Men 1 said he and Magneto built Cerebro. And in X-Men First Class, the CIA and Beast built Cerebro. So who built Cerebro? Was it the CIA and Beast in X-Men First Class? Or did Professor X and Magneto make Cerebro later on? It's not working together. These movies are not meshing. That's what I'm trying to get at. And later on is everyone knows Professor X can freeze time. Well, not exactly. He can make you think you're free. He's able to make you think that time has been frozen. Okay? In X-Men First Class, he freezes. Well, I'll just keep saying he freezes time when he doesn't really. But he freezes time in the CIA building so Moira McTaggart, can get around and talk to Charles Xavier in private. But in the end of X-Men First Class, all these missiles are coming in, being shot at all the mutants, and my question is why doesn't Charles Xavier make the generals on the boat, why doesn't he make them, why doesn't he freeze time then, before they push the button to launch all the missiles? There's no consistency. I hope I'm displaying my thoughts correctly. It's not constant. No consistency, And then later on, sometime later on, Professor X uses his mind to freeze Sebastian Shaw in the submarine, so when Magneto is fighting him. So, I don't get why he would freeze time in those moments, but not freeze time before the missiles were fired at the mutants. Okay, and now we're getting to Sebastian Shaw. He was played by Kevin Bacon. That's, okay, fine. That's a personal gripe with me. Nothing against Kevin Bacon. He's a great actor. I love it. But when I was watching the movie, all I kept thinking was, turn invisible. You're Hollow Man. Just turn invisible. I know that has nothing to do with the movie, but that's what I saw Kevin Bacon as, is just the Hollow Man. And I wanted him to turn invisible. But in the movie, he wore Magneto's famous helmet. He wore that in the movie to block telepath, Professor X and I would assume maybe Emma Frost. But he wore that to protect his brain from being entered from telepaths. My questions getting back, is how did he get the helmet? He said the Russians made the helmet. Why did they make the helmet? Who was he afraid of? He didn't meet Charles Xavier until about halfway through the movie. So why did he have the helmet being made? And that raises another question. Why weren't more helmets made for the rest of the bad guys? Why was only one made? Why is that one helmet unique if it was made by Russians? And that brings me to another point with the submarine. Is Sebastian Shaw was inside this room made of the same material that blocked telepaths. My question is, again, did Russians build that one particular room? Did they know they were going to get involved with telepaths? Because I would assume the submarine was built way before they met Charles Xavier. Again, with the Magneto helmet and Cerebro thing, Magneto mentioned in X-Men 1 that he wears the helmet to block Professor X's telepath ability. That's cool, that's fine. And he knows how to block that ability because he helped him build Cerebro. So that's why Magneto knows how to make that telepath blocking helmet for himself. So, again, the whole helmet thing doesn't make sense to me. Moving on. Let's see. Sebastian Shaw. Again, more with Sebastian Shaw. His power in the movie is to absorb energy and then, release it out as a gigantic explosion. That's a huge problem. Okay? Because in the comics, that is not his power. Or at least not exactly. In the comics, his power is to absorb kinetic energy. Okay, fine. They got that part right. But in the comic, he turns that power that he absorbs into physical energy, into raw strength energy, So he absorbed energy and it turns into physical power. In the movie, he absorbs the kinetic energy, the power, the explosion, and then he can re-release it as a gigantic explosion. So, it doesn't work, they rewrote his powers to work in a different way. In the comic, he got physical strength when he absorbed powers. In the movie, they turned him into a human bomb. Whatever. And then, also in the movie, Sebastian Shaw, he was in the Nazi camp at the beginning of the movie. He was like a young guy in that scene. Okay? Late at the end of the movie, he was the same, well, not the same age, but he still looked young. Are you telling me that Sebastian Shaw has the ability, the mutant power to stay young? Are you telling me that? No, because he does not have that power. I don't care which way you see it. He does not have that power. His only power is to absorb the kinetic energy and turn it into physical strength. He cannot stay young like Wolverine can. Okay, going on to Moira McTaggart. I would think everyone knows who Moira McTaggart is from the comics. In the comics, she's a geneticist on Muir Island, helping mutants. In this movie, she was a CIA agent in the 1960s, okay? This is the X-Men First Class. She was a CIA agent. But in X-Men 3, at the end of the credits, she was a doctor or a geneticist, and she still looked young, maybe in her 30s. So are you telling me that from 1960 to 2008, when X-Men 3 was made, she did not age? She did not age? And what, she changed careers? I don't get it, So I don't understand why she was a CIA agent and then a geneticist 50 years later. That doesn't make any sense to me. And also, this is just a gripe with the actress. She was actually an amazing actress. I really liked her in the movie. But she had an Australian accent in the movie. Okay, in the comics, she's from Scotland. Enough said. Magneto. Going on to Magneto. Magneto, I understand this is the first movie. They're just learning their powers. But there's a scene in X-Men First Class where Magneto has Emma Frost pinned against a brass bed frame, and he's using the bed frame to choke her with the brass. And what happens is he's using the brass to crack her diamond skin. This is the problem I have with that, is diamonds are one of the hardest substance on this planet. Are you telling me that a brass bed frame is able to crack a diamond surface? like, I don't, like, I would understand maybe, yeah, it could if Magneto was applying enough pressure to it, but, you know, I don't understand that either, because that scene, he did that, he cracked her diamond skin, but in the next scene, he had trouble moving a gigantic radar satellite, you know, so, like, I don't understand he had the enough mutant power to use enough pressure to make a brass bed frame, cracking her diamond skin, but he could not move a giant radar dish without the help of Professor X. Another thing is just Magneto seemed a little James Bondish, which was okay, I guess. Banshee, no issues with him. I liked him actually a lot. Beast. I liked him too, actually. The only problem I had with him is once he became Beast, like the Blue Beast, his lip syncing with his words were a little off. You know, nothing major. Angel, the sexy stripper girl in the movie that could fly with the insect wings. Yeah, huge problem with her. This movie took place in 1960. In the comics, Angel wasn't created until 2001. So, like, why would you take a character that was made in 2001 in the comics and put her in a 1960s movie? Yeah, I just don't get it. And then another thing is, in the comics, Angel doesn't have tattoos. You know, that's not a big issue, but main issue is she was created in 2001, but she was put in a 1960s movie. And actually, that goes into the other character, Darwin. Is same thing. This is a character that was created in 2008, and he was in a 1960s movie. You know, why were these characters in this movie when it's clearly X-Men First Class, and you put in characters that were created in the 2000s? Another thing with Darwin is, why did they put him in the movie anyway? What, just to kill him? Like, seriously? Come on. You know, and like Darwin's mutant power is to adapt to anything, to adapt to his surroundings, to the events, to the situation. But he was very easily killed. Like, very easily killed by Sebastian Shaw. You know, I don't understand it. For a mutant that could adapt to anything, you know, very hard to kill, he was just very easily taken out of the movie. Okay, now we're going to Riptide. This is the character, I saw the movie, and I saw this guy shooting tornadoes and stuff like that, and like, obviously you think Storm, but this is a guy. So, but I didn't find out until after I got home that this was Riptide. This character was a very forgettable character. He had no lines in the movie. He had no point in the movie whatsoever. You might as well have just taken him out and put somebody more recognizable, more popular in the movie, you know? And going on to Azrael, you know, I have a friend that said this was the best sub-villain in anything he's ever seen. But, and I'm talking directly to him. I'm sorry to just call you out. I'm not going to say your name. But, you know, what are you basing that on? What are you basing that Azrael is the coolest sub-villain you have ever seen? Are you just basing it on his powers? Because Azrael had no, like, he may have, like, had one line in the movie. That's it. He hardly talked. He had no personality whatsoever. He was just a mindless killer. So what are you basing his popularity on? What? The ability to teleport? Nightcrawler has that power. Nightcrawler in X-Men 2 was way better than Azrael because Nightcrawler had lines. You got to know him. You got to learn him. You got to, you know, fall in love with him. You understood Nightcrawler. Azrael, he had nothing. He had no power. He had no lines. All he did was teleport. You know, so I don't understand why he was like the cool villain in the movie. Another thing with Azrael is he just sucked. Like, his fight scene with Beast, pure sucked. You know, going back to Nightcrawler, you know, Nightcrawler in X-Men 2, a guy who spent most of his life worshiping God, you know, probably, like, you know, never picked a fight with anybody. You know, he had better fight scenes in X-Men 2 than Azrael did in First Class. You know, like, hands down. Like, I don't... So, again, I'm talking to my friend here if he's watching this. I don't understand why you think Azrael is the best sub-villain you've ever seen. Because he simply just had no lines, and I think... I don't know what you're basing that on. What, because he was evil and he could teleport? Fine, whatever. Nothing with the movie, I guess, but you may or may not know, Azrael is the father of Nightcrawler in the comics, and he and Mystique, you know, did the dirty deed, and that's how Nightcrawler is created. Nightcrawler got the blue skin from Mystique and the teleporting power from Azrael. Not really important to the movie, but I figured I'd just point that out. Okay, the last character I know this is getting kind of long, but the last character I'm just going to suggest is Havoc. You know, this is probably one of my biggest problems in the movie was Havoc. Why was he in the movie? Seriously? You know, he is the younger brother of Scott Summers, or Cyclops, people might not know. But yeah, he's the younger brother of Cyclops. In Wolverine, Cyclops was in Wolverine as a teenager, okay? But in X-Men First Class, Havoc was in X-Men First Class as a teenager. So if Havoc is the younger brother of Scott Summers, wouldn't Havoc be a lot younger, or wouldn't Scott Summers be in First Class? Or, like, if, you know, why wasn't Scott Summers in First Class? You know, he could easily be in First Class. And if they did put him in First Class, he would have to be, like, what, 10 years old? You know, maybe even younger? So, the fact that Havoc is the younger brother of Scott Summers doesn't make any sense why he's in that movie. You know, again, I understand that him and Banshee were, you know, kind of demanded by fans. But, okay, that's fine. You know, but, like, it just doesn't work with the other movies. You know, it's not consistent. And then, again, Professor X, he met Scott Summers. He met Cyclops. He met Havoc. Wouldn't you think at one point in any of the movies, he would be like, oh, hey, I met your brother back in the day. You know, like, oh, do you know you have a brother. You know, here, let me introduce you to him. You know, like, that doesn't work for me. You know, like, if Professor X knew both Summer brothers, wouldn't he say something in one of the movies? Again, Havoc was in jail. Never explained. Not a huge thing, but it just never explained why he was in the movie. I guess it was just because he couldn't control his powers. Maybe he killed somebody. Maybe he destroyed some public property, but it was just never explained. The costumes in the movie, I actually loved the costumes in the movie, the blue and yellow costumes in the movie. I really did like those. But the problem with Havoc's costume, he had a gigantic circle on his chest. And I'm just thinking, wow, he looks just like Cyclone from the Masters of the Universe cartoon. You know, I think that's just a poor design. Especially since in the comics, Havoc, I know he can shoot his energy out of pretty much any part of his body, but mostly he shoots his power out of his hands, okay? You know, I know he shoots it out of any part of his body, but he mostly just shoots it out of his hands. The fact that he shot it out of his chest from that little device he wore, you know, it just didn't make any sense to me. You know, he looked just like Cyclone, Masters of the Universe. And then, I read this morning, when I wrote these thoughts down, I did some little research, and I found out that they're in talks of making an X-Men First Class 2, so a sequel to this one. And I read that they're going to change Havoc to rewrite him as Scott Summers' father. That's just a huge problem, because in the comics, he's the younger brother of Scott Summers, not the father of Scott Summers. The father of Scott Summers is Nathan Summers. I believe that's his name. He's the captain of the Starjammers. So, I think Nathan is his name. I would have to look that up. If anyone knows that for sure, please comment below. So I'm not positive on that, but I know Havoc is not the father of Scott Summers. Okay, so if you rewrite him for the sequel, if that is made, that is just pure BS. I'm sorry. But that's it for all my characters. Again, I love the blue and yellow costumes. Awesome. I really liked it. But my final thoughts is, if you are going in to see this movie and you know nothing about X-Men, nothing about the other movies, then fine. Go see it. It was actually a pretty good movie. Good story. Amazing. I will say that. It was a good story. But the fact, I'm a huge comic book guy. I love comics. I read them all the time. So me going in and seeing this and viewing the other X-Men movies, I couldn't help but compare it to the comics. And I definitely could not help trying to connect it with the other movies because it just wasn't consistent with the other movies, as I mentioned before on this list. It just did not mesh with the other movies. There was so many inconsistencies. It wasn't even funny. And that's what killed the movie for me. Last thing, no biggie. You know how at the end of each Marvel movie there's like an extra scene after the credits? There was none. Not a big thing, but still kind of like, I waited after the credits and there was no extra scene. So, but those are my thoughts for X-Men First Class. I, fully thought out and detailed. So, I hope I don't get any more messages of like vile, gross, disgusting things, because that's just not cool. I am more than happy to debate my thoughts, debate anything with anybody about this movie. But in the end, I just simply did not like this movie, mainly because they got all the characters wrong, and the movies was not consistent with the other movies. That's why I hated this movie. But if you go and see this movie knowing nothing about X-Men, and you haven't seen the other movies, fine. Go see this movie. It's actually a really good story. So, those are my final thoughts of X-Men First Class. If you disagree with me, cool. Comment below. Like I said, I'll be happy to debate you. But like I said, this was an updated video to a video that I took down recently. So I will actually put my original video at the end of this one so you can watch my unthought out plans or unthought out thoughts compared to my, the thoughts I actually took the time and wrote down. So, again, I know I'm in the minority, but that's just my opinion, so.
Okay, I am outside the Showcase Cinemas in my hometown. I don't want to give out the town name, but this is the Showcase Cinema outside my town, and I just saw X-Men First Class, and I must say, you guys, I fucking hated it. I'm sorry, I went to see this movie. I thought this movie was going to be an amazing movie, really great movie. I was wicked excited for it, beyond belief. I couldn't wait till this movie came out, but I just came out of the theater and I just saw this thing and I absolutely hated it. I couldn't believe it. This is probably the worst X-Men movie I've ever seen. Can I say the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen? Possibly, yeah. I'm sorry, there was just no way I could possibly like this movie. And anyone who knows me in real life, or knows me from my YouTube channel, I am a huge, huge superhero fan. Superheroes are my one and only passion. I can't find anything wrong about any superhero, even Aquaman. But I saw this movie, and I hated it. I couldn't stand it. They got every single character wrong. They got every single event wrong. The only one they did get correct, and not really, is maybe Beast. But yeah, I'm sorry. Anyone who's watching this video, please, yeah, if you want to go see the movie, cool. Go ahead, see the movie. I'm not going to stop you. But I don't recommend this movie at all. And I'm probably not even going to buy this movie on DVD or Blu-ray, and I'd buy every single superhero movie Blu-ray. I even own Catwoman with Halle Berry on DVD. But yeah, Yeah, I couldn't stand this thing. It was horrible. So, I do not recommend this movie at all. So I'm not gonna give any spoilers. Actually, I will give spoilers away. So if you guys are watching this video and you haven't seen the movie yet, and you don't want any spoilers, stop watching it. Stop watching this video right now, because I will tell you spoilers. So this is my warning to you guys to stop watching this video, because I'm gonna tell you some spoilers and the reasons why I hate this movie. Okay, first up, has anyone seen Wolverine, the Wolverine movie? Does anyone recognize Emma Frost from that movie? She was a kid in that movie, or a teenager in that movie. This movie, X-Men First Class, this takes place before everything else. This is the first movie, okay? But in X-Men Wolverine Origin, she was a teenager. Emma Frost was a teenager in that movie. In this movie, she was a full-grown adult. So tell me how she's a full-grown adult in this movie, and it takes place before everything else, but she's a teenager in Wolverine. Another thing they got wrong is this. I just can't stand it. For one, Havoc. Let me tell you about Havoc in this movie. First of all, yeah, cool. Yeah, he shoots laser beams, but I don't really have a huge problem with him. But he does not shoot laser beams out of his chest. I'm sorry. And speaking of out of his chest, he doesn't wear a device that helps him control his powers. I understand in this movie he's a teenager and they're just trying to learn their powers, but I'm sorry. Like, his powers, they come from his hands. His hands. You know, they don't come from his chest. They don't come from any part of his body except his hands. So, and speaking of Havoc or Alex Summers, what happened to Scott Summers? Seriously, what happened to Scott Summers? If this movie takes place before everything else, does anyone remember Cyclops being in X-Men? Again, Cyclops was a teenager in X-Men. So, and the thing is, at the end of Wolverine, Professor X, a bald Professor X, saved Scott Summers at the end of Wolverine, okay? And in this movie, Professor X teams up with Alex Summers, Cyclops' brother. Wouldn't you think that Professor X mentioning both, or meeting both Summers boys, would mention, hey, I met your brother, we teamed up long ago? Or, you know, in some sort of in one point of the X-Men movies, they would say, hey, Alex, this is your brother Scott. You know, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense how they cannot mention that Professor X has met both Summer brothers. I just don't understand it. And it's just, it's weird. But yeah, I just can't understand this movie. It was so bad. And another thing I just really can't stand is because half the movie was stock footage, which I guess is fine, I suppose, because it was set in the 1960s, which is great. You know, that's fine. But X-Men First Class, has anyone read the first X-Men comics? The first people in X-Men were Professor X, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Angel, and Iceman. Okay? Not, well, Beast, yes, but not Mystique, not Banshee, not Myra McTaggart, anybody. I was like, I can't believe they picked these people to be in this movie. But and the cameo with Wolverine, yes, that's right, Wolverine was in this movie. So that doesn't make any sense either, you know? If this movie takes place before Wolverine, shouldn't Sabretooth be with Wolverine? So, but yeah, this is the scene with Wolverine. Professor X and Magneto are recruiting X-Men, you know, to join them in this movie. They go up to Wolverine, and Wolverine basically tells them to fuck off. Okay, that's cool, that's just like Wolverine. But again, this movie takes place before Wolverine. So, wouldn't Sabretooth be with Wolverine? Actually, wouldn't Wolverine be in that military army that he was in with Deadpool and Blob and the other guys? There's just so many inconsistencies with this movie. So, but yeah, oh, sorry, I was just taking the time. But yeah, that's my thoughts about this movie. I do not recommend this movie. Yeah, I just don't recommend this movie. You know, and it pains me because I am a huge superhero fan. So, that's my impressions of X-Men First Class. So, yeah, again, you guys see this movie if you really, really want to, you know, but again, I don't recommend it. Alright, so, this is Quick Freeze 4 from outside my Showcase Cinemas. And, yeah, I hope you guys have a nice day, I guess, alright? See ya.